Alright, welcome back. In this next video, we're going to be going over candidate calls. Alright, so a couple things we're going to cover here. The first are the four quadrants. This is directly from Mr. JC, of course, added points by myself. Pre and post call best practices, navigating the conversation, scripts and one-liners, and then in general concepts. So in this video, we're just going to be going over the four quadrants. Alright. Let's go and take a look here. All right, so the idea here is that the best case scenario in one conversation, we're going to get all four of these points, and they can come um, at different times. Some of this you might get before even having the call, but ideally, this is what we want, and this is all that we need before we can submit a candidate to a client. Right? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the first one. So resume, right? Obviously, if we can ask for a resume and get that before we have the conversation, best case scenario, right? More on how to do that in other conversations. Experience, right? Just going in and getting their general experience, their strengths, and their areas of expertise. Okay, so that's going to be a pretty general thing to get in conversation with those guys. Set a follow-up, right? At the very least, we also want to set a follow-up. That can be in the same day, follow up in the same day, or it can be a month on the line, just depending on kind of where they're at in terms of interest. But definitely always want to get a follow-up unless there's somebody that we know we can't work with right away, right? Then we wouldn't necessarily need a follow-up. Or maybe the follow-up is, hey, let's touch base a month on the line, 3 months down the line. Okay, so set a follow-up with them. Definitely something you want to do in having a conversation. Next. Next is active or passive, right? Is a candidate active on the market, or are they passively just looking for opportunities that could be a good next fit? And then along with that, have they interviewed with one of our clients in the last year? Okay, so this is some of the basic information that I would consider to be, a pre-qualifying, getting their basic experience. What are they doing? What are their expertise? If they haven't gotten their resume, asking for the resume so that you can set a follow-up time to speak with the account director or somebody else, even yourself, once you have kind of more of their information to assess what opportunities might be the best fit, or what companies or what practice might be the best to align that person with. Okay. Quadrant 2, salary. Okay. Quadrant 2. So this is again, this is just best case scenario. Sometimes you're not able to have that conversation of financials right away, just depending on how open they are. But in terms of salary, we want to get current, past, and future. And so some of the reason behind that, you start with the current. Hey, what is your current base salary right now? Don't make a big deal of it. If you make a big deal of it, they will too. Maybe they'll give you a runaround, or they won't answer. Just not right away in the conversation, but towards the middle slash end. Ask them the question: hey, what are you making right now? What's your current base? Once you get that, great. And you can either ask in terms of past. You can ask, okay, so what was your? If you know they've recently been promoted, hey, what was your base last year? Or if you know they've been with the company 3 years, okay, what was your base when you joined the company? Okay. And so what that's going to do, if it's going to allow you to see to measure their rate of change, or the rate of growth that they've had. So if somebody has been someone's on 80K right now, but they just got promoted last year from 75K to 80K, or they just got promoted 3 months ago, it's not going to be reasonable for them to expect another 15 to 20% jump in base. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Say they've been at 80K for the last year or two, then maybe, yeah, definitely looking for that jump to happen. So it's good to understand that, and it can also be used as a selling point for why they might want to make a transition. If you know that they've only progressed 5% each year over the last 3 years, you can say, look, let's get you a 10 to 15, let's get you a 15 to 20% jump, right? So that is what that's about. And then obviously future, asking what their desired salary is, what they'd be targeting. That's going to be important information. We want to get them to commit to a number. May have some resistance there, but more on how to handle that conversation. But yeah, salary is what we want to get. Resume, again, that's kind of actually in the first quad. We would just nothing too new for quad 2. Quad 3, right? Get into some more of the details. So current projects is something that's not always easy to get. Could be very easy. Could be something you ask right away in talking to them. But in general, if you're able to understand what clients, what projects they're working on, currently, that's going to give you a ton of information. It's going to be great to know. and it's going to be something that you can put in their write-up. Hey, this person is a senior associate at Sapient, working within the trading and risk management space, currently working on reference data with a large asset manager. Boom. That's a great first statement to make, and giving a really good sense of what this person is, where their person is at, and what they're currently doing. So then from there, getting projects that they've been on over the course of their 2, 3, 5 years, or the last 3 years at the company will be great. And then from there, knowing the types of clients, knowing if it's, hey, they're working with a lot of the banks, or they're working with asset managers, or they're working with insurers, will also help you determine where this person might best fit in terms of some of the opportunities that we have. Okay. From there, level qualifications. So level qualifications, this becomes really important to ask when we're talking to assess whether or not a potential title jump might be in place. So resource planning, project management, people management, business development. So people at the senior consultant level, we want to ask, have you done any resource planning? Do you have resource planning experience? So resource planning is the planning of a project, right? Planning how many people, planning how much money, planning how much time will be needed to complete a project. Okay, so that's something that they would do with a manager, right, or with a senior manager. Okay, so that they took part in doing some of that, they probably are doing that with somebody that's higher level. And so the question to them is, have you done any resource planning, or is resource planning something that you've done in some of your projects you've worked on? Okay. Also, along with that, project management. Still up for the senior consultant, senior associate level, asking them, so project management is managing the actual projects, which includes timelines and benchmarks, being responsible for the benchmarks and making sure a certain amount of the project is getting done at certain amounts of times. Right? That's what project management is. It usually suggests that someone's project management that they're technical, but not necessarily. You could be managing a project that is functional or process oriented, right? But this is something again that senior associates may or may not have. If they do have some of that, yep, they're definitely on track and on target for moving into some of that manager level positions. Lastly, people management. That's just managing people. Hey, how many people have you managed? How many people are a direct report to you? Direct reports is a better teller than people that they're supervising or overseeing. Okay, these three things are all things that managers are already doing. If they're a manager, they're already doing this. You want to ask, how many people are you managing? How many projects are you managing? And I wouldn't even ask the resource planning bit to managers, because that's just part of their role, right? So how many people, how many projects, what's the scope of the projects, how long have they gone for, as much information around that. For managers will assess, hey, are they ready now for senior managers? So then again with that, business development. Also something you can ask managers, hey, have you taken part in any of the business development work? And there's a bunch of different ways to look at business development, right? So I haven't filled those out. Let's do that now. So the first thing of business development is managed revenue. So managers are going to have a certain amount of managed revenue that we're responsible for, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they themselves have sold that business, right? So you want to know, what, and it's going to be in the millions, right? I'm not sure exactly what numbers, but what was your managed revenue? That's what you want to ask. And then you want to ask, have you done any new business development? Right? New business development. How much new business development have you had? Right? For managers, have you had any new business development? How much, and how much? Managers, if they have some, it's a good teller that they're moving and ready for that senior manager step. They don't necessarily have to have that, right? And then for people who are already senior managers, you want to know, yes, new business development, and then how much of that was from new clients, and then how much of that was from existing clients. Okay, for senior managers, they want to be somewhere between 1 and 3 million a year, right? In addition to that, for senior managers, you can also ask them, targets. what are your targets, and then from there, what are your targets? Okay, and what are you selling and delivering? Okay, and again, it's going to be around that 1 to 3 million mark, and it could be new business developments or from new clients or from existing clients. Okay, and then for partners, right, the big conversation there again is business development, but it's also going to be P&L, profit and loss. Okay, and that for a good partner is going to be around 30 million. Okay, so asking them, hey, what is your P&L? That is what gives you a good sense of how good that partner is. Okay, these things here. All right, so those are questions you can ask for senior consultants, managers, and senior managers, right, to qualify them in terms of level. All right, so lastly, looking at quadrant 4, um, quantified functional experience, motivation and career interests, and then 3 to 5 reasons, right? So again, these are all things that we're going to need and have that will contribute to the submittal, right? To contribute to the write-up. So if we can get them to quantify some of their functional experience, that's going to be very helpful in writing up their write-up. And before we do the call, which we'll get into in some of the pre-call best practices, is going to be knowing exactly kind of what functional experience we want to be able to quantify. For example, if we know they're a risk manager, hey, if we know they have Dodd-Frank on their profile, how many years of Dodd-Frank experience do you have? Or if you had to quantify your Dodd-Frank experience, how many years would you say you have there? As an example, right? That's going to be very helpful. Motivation, career interests, understanding, hey, what is going to be their motivating factor? Is it just about money? Is it because they don't like their boss? Is it because they're looking to work with more large-scale projects? Is it because they're looking to get into different projects? So a number of different things that become key things we're looking for that are going to be that will satisfy our clients' question around what their motivation is. Something that might be their motivation we don't want to put. We have to dig deeper to get them to think about what would be a bigger motivation in order to satisfy our clients' interest in why they're looking. Okay, and then lastly, 3 to 5 reasons. 3 to 5 reasons that they're a good fit. 3 to 5 reasons why they're a fit for the role, or main areas of strengths from their perspective. This can be again used in write-ups, not too much different from some of their quantifying their functional experience. But if we get them, hey, can you send a quick email with 3 to 5 reasons you think you're a really strong fit, or 3 to 5 reasons that are your strengths as it relates to risk management, for example, or international tax. That can just help me in terms of selling points once I sell you into our clients. That would be great, right? Have them write that up. Something that you could use in the write-up, or something just for your own knowledge to understand, hey, what are they saying their strengths are? Okay, so as we're looking at all that, quadrant 1, 2, 3. You can get these in different pieces. Maybe starting out the conversation, you are starting with what their motivation and their interests are. But these are all the pieces we're going to want to get before we're able to submit them in successfully. All right. In the next videos, we'll be covering over some of the other topics that relate to candidate calls.